Welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm so glad you're joining us. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Elise. Welcome, Elise.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to come and share all of your advice and tips. She is a mom of 5 children. What are their age ranges? I can't remember.
The oldest is 18 and the youngest is almost 11.
Okay, so a freshman in college all the way down to
5th grade.
5th grade. And she and her husband have started redballoon.work. And so with the startup business, she is busy helping him with that. She also is a teacher, and she teaches at the local classical Christian school. She teaches Bible and church history for high school. So on top of all of that, she hosts guests and friends and family. So we are going to hear all about her tips, especially a menu. So, Elise, what do you serve when you are thinking about having company over?
Well, thanks for having me, Beth. One of the things that I do is I have an Italian sausage and tomato soup that I would pick as one of my favorite go-to recipes because it's quick and it's tasty. My kids love it, and also adults love it. So I find that it's not a stressful thing to have. You put some homemade bread with it, and it's just a nice, tasty dinner. If it's cold.
Yes.
Outside.
Well, and this will be airing when it is cold outside, especially up north. It will be freezing outside. So having something that works for kids too is genius. When you say homemade bread, do you have a specific place you go and look for homemade bread? Do you have a particular favorite recipe? Before we jump into the soup?
I look in my oven because that's where I put it.
You put it in the oven. It should be there.
So we went actually to an Italian restaurant in Mexico, and I have a recipe for Italian bread that my kids really love. So I make that, and it has all the Italian spices in it. But then, of course, you could just have sourdough or French bread or normal Italian bread. Depends on sometimes what's in the freezer, because I like to make a bunch of bread and then put it in the freezer so that I don't need to make it the day of, especially with teaching.
That's actually a really great tip, because if you are making bread, you might as well make extra so that when company's headed over, you can just pull it out and you're not having to do that too.
It's true. And then you can reheat it in the oven and pull it out, and it
tastes so fresh.
So much better than if I had. I mean, of course, if you have to swing by and grab some from the store, that's also fine. But I like to be able to have it homemade if I can.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so tell us about your menu. Tell us about this soup.
So it has Italian sausage, which is actually what my kids really love. And then it has beef broth. It has mushrooms in it. My kids do not like mushrooms. So I put them in the little handheld food processor, make them super small so that they don't notice them.
They can't pick them out.
That's right. And maybe they won't see that they're there, but they still actually make it taste better.
You've made it enough times, they probably know they're there.
Yes, I'm sure they do.
They're looking, but they can't find them.
But they still like the dinner. And then I do frozen garlic cloves and frozen chopped onions to make it faster. And I don't make my own beef stock, which I think all French chefs would be disappointed in, but I'm just fine with it.
Right. I admit that as well. I don't make my own beef stock. I really should.
Yeah, I've gotten past even feeling bad about that. Just know it's never going to happen. But my oldest, when he was born, a lady in the church brought us soup, and she brought the pasta that went in the soup separately from the soup itself, because she said this way, if you have leftovers, when you reheat it, the pasta won't have absorbed all of the soup, the broth. And so I usually, unless I know, okay, we're going to go through this, we have a bunch of people coming over, we're going to eat it all, and it's all going to be gone. Then if I think I'm going to have leftovers, I will have a separate, I'll cook the pasta separately so that I can sort of deconstruct the soup, and then it makes it easier to have leftovers. And also the same with the spinach. Nobody likes leftover spinach. Mm-hmm. It actually is just gross.
Right. So you leave that separate and put it in at the last minute, the spinach and noodles.
I actually will just do the bowls with pasta and spinach, and then you pour your soup on top of that. And then whatever you're garnishing it with, in this case it's basil and Parmesan, but whatever the case, so that you don't end up with you want to go have soup the next day and you're picking out all the spinach.
Because
And
it's wilted and
it's
gross.
turned that olive green color, which it should not be.
It looks very unappetizing.
Yes.
Does it stay like you want it if you have it in a separate bowl, or do you just skip spinach the next day?
Well, I just add more spinach the next day. So
or you're using fresh spinach.
yes.
Not the
Yes,
frozen.
not frozen,
Okay.
fresh spinach. And so the next day I have more spinach and I add it in. And if you double a soup recipe, you can have leftovers some other night of the week. And that's
really nice.
handy. Because right now we're also in the stage of 3 game nights a week. So in that case, we don't take soup because it's still pretty hot here. But we take a lot of pasta salads or something that you can eat sometimes multiple nights a week at
Right.
multiple games.
Right.
So
So then if you have your pasta separate, you could grab the pasta and then whatever
Yeah.
other topping you wanted instead
Right.
of having it to be a soup.
right. And you could actually make a different meal and then everyone feels like they've had something else.
Something
not the
different
same
besides
thing.
soup for the third time.
Right, right.
Tell me about frozen garlic. Do you buy it that way, or do you cut your own cloves and then
Oh no,
freeze
but
it?
there's this it's I don't know how you say it. DOROT is a brand, and it comes in these little trays, and you it's a frozen in the frozen section, and you just pop them out into
Yes.
your soup. And they have garlic, they have ginger, they have basil. I don't know what else, but the basil sometimes I'll throw in this soup, or if I'm making a tomato soup.
Where did you find this again?
I
The
get
grocery
it
store?
at Rosar's, which is local, but I've seen it also at Walmart.
And it's in with the frozen vegetables.
Okay, I only do grocery pickup. I have no idea where it is. I've
Maybe
never-
that's why I haven't seen it, because that's
Yeah.
what I've been doing recently too.
It's in my cart online. Or I
Right.
just
You
type in
press
the
a
name.
button.
Yeah.
You type in frozen garlic.
Right.
I actually just learned about those little pods for ginger, which have been amazing to have in the freezer because I love buying fresh ginger, of course, but it's not readily available. I think, I have some ginger, and then a month later in the bottom of your crisper is that little piece of ginger you thought
That
you had.
didn't look so great.
No,
No,
it's
and-
kind of like that olive green spinach. It's not going anywhere but the trash.
Yes. And then you have to peel it, and then you have to grate it, and actually the little
So if you
things
have
are
a little
easier.
pod, just to really, especially if you're in a quick, you
Right.
have to make a quick recipe. It's a football game night or, whatever else.
And this stage of life feels very much like every night's a quick recipe, actually.
Yes. With teenagers.
It's
So
amazing.
All of you moms that or all of the listeners who are moms of little kids, okay? Potty training and all the things. Bath time, bedtime.
Convincing them to eat their bite.
Convincing them
My
to take
children
a
were
bite
not
of
eaters as
squash
little
or
kids.
mushroom or You think this is the busiest time of your life. We'll
And
never get
physically,
busier.
it's super busy because
Physically,
you're
it is.
constantly picking somebody up and taking them somewhere. But
Physically it is, but something about having a bunch of teenagers, it changes, but it's a different kind of busy, wouldn't you say?
it's just as much of an investment, but they don't go to bed.
Until 11 o'clock at night
They're
or
still
later.
up, like, let's chat about it. But it's so fun.
It's a very, very fun stage.
It really is.
You're exhausted in a different way.
You are. And you think, I might, because you're getting to where you need to actually get sleep, and you could go to bed earlier, but they are not. They
They're
have just
burning the
realized
midnight oil.
they need to talk to you about this thing.
Yes.
And dinner has turned into, it's at least an hour. Everybody has their stories and they want to tell all their things. And who would trade that? It's the best
for sure.
thing.
It's wonderful. Our youngest is 15, and he tries to get to bed kind of early, which, when you're studying, he has football practice after school, and then he's studying, and he has piano that he practices. And so by the time he finally, go brush your teeth, we think, okay, he's heading to bed. Come tell us good night, head to bed. And he'll come and he'll plop down at the end of our bed.
And they want to talk.
starts
Like, I
talking
just
about
had this
something.
thing, this thought I had
Oh,
to tell you about. And I
yes.
need to ask you your advice.
And it's always some, just topic that could be expounded upon for
it's
so many
going to be a
minutes and hours.
huge topic. If it comes up at 11, it's a big one.
Which, if it was a very serious topic, obviously we would sit and address it. But a lot of times we're like, you're procrastinating, aren't you? You just don't want to go to bed. He's like, I don't know why I don't like going to bed. There's something about teenagers.
They're not
They don't want to go to bed. They know they need to, but they don't really want to. It's like, so it's the thing to stay up till 11 or midnight. I don't know.
It's true. It's true.
So he wants to sit down and, I mean, it could be the most random. I wish I could remember what they are because it's really hilarious. But anyway.
But you're too tired to
I'm too
remember.
tired. And
Like,
a lot of times I'm just
survive.
booting it to my husband because it's something about, some football player and some situation that happened last week. And I'm like, I don't even know who y'all are talking about.
It's true.
So, fun times. Very fun times with teenagers. Okay. Where were we on the menu?
Oh, yeah.
Back to the food that we feed teenagers with.
Yes, we were freezing the garlic. Well, we were cooking the frozen garlic.
Shortcuts are just ways that you can make it a little bit faster.
So, if you're trying to prep something and you have a short amount of time and I'm going to make a soup that has pasta in it, or I'm going to make a pasta salad, or whatever you're going to do, you can make the pasta ahead of time. And you can, if it's a pasta salad, you could cook up the meat ahead of time, or I buy the frozen rotisserie chicken breast from Costco. Mm-hmm. And you can just throw it put some olive oil on it, salt and pepper, throw it in the oven, in the broiler, and then it kind of gets a little bit of crispy brown edges on it, makes it taste a little bit better.
Nice. That's a great idea.
So that's useful and faster.
And that's already cooked
It's pre-cooked,
right?
so you really don't actually have to do that. I just think it tastes better.
Mm-hmm. You're kind of livening up the flavor.
Right. If I'm adding it to, if I were doing a chicken fettuccine Alfredo or a chicken tortilla soup, I'd probably just throw it right in. Mm-hmm. But a Chinese chicken salad, it's better if you've crisped it up a little bit.
It is amazing how fast you can put together a chicken recipe if your chicken is pre-cooked.
Yes.
It's literally half the time or less. I have a particular soup that I do that with, that if I have, it calls for cooked cubed chicken, like just little pieces. And if I have a bag of that in the freezer, it's almost like an instant soup. It's amazing.
Which is great, because when people come in from a practice or they're going to a game, they're hungry. Mm-hmm. They need something.
Calories.
And when they walk into the house and it smells like dinner, it's this huge blessing to their soul. Yeah. Last night, it just smelled like I'd turned on the oven to broil. And one of my kids was like, Mom, it smells so good. And I was like, well, it's actually just the oven.
Just heating up.
It's just that it's so hot in there that whatever may have dripped on the bottom might be what you're smelling. You're really hungry. So,
you don't want to admit to that, but well.
No,
the kids don't care.
Maybe
They just
I
know
shouldn't
that.
Mention that.
Well, no. I'm saying, I mean, it's the kids are thinking there's food. You're like, oh, well, there's really nothing. But it's the hope that something's about to be put in there. Even just the heating up, they're excited about.
It's true, and it is nice to feed hungry people.
Yes, it is. And it really, like you said, it's a blessing to your children to have a hot meal. And it becomes very, very much a blessing as they become starving teenagers.
Yes. And then to see them, when they were little, it was so much time was spent just teaching them how to be at the table, how to eat your food. You actually have to eat your food. Mm-hmm. And that now it's, okay, everybody wants to talk, and this food is a way for us to all come together and talk about their day and find out what's going on and tell the stories, and everybody's laughing and having a great time. That's exactly what we want.
I think it is so important to start that habit young, not just for your kids, for yourself. Because if parents let that slide and feel like it's too much work or it's too much of a hassle to just gather around the table, everybody, maybe somebody needs to be doing piano practice, or maybe somebody wants to be in their room doing homework, or whatever it is. There's always excuses. But if you can create that as a habit.
Right.
I know one friend I have, she said that as her kids did become teenagers and the schedules got more and more difficult, that they would try to find a time with everybody, like when is everybody going to be home? And of course, it may not happen 7 nights a week, but just at least some, at least a consistent. Anyway, so they would decide what time is everybody actually going to be here at the same time. And it may be, 7 or it may be 9 or it could be 5 or 4:30. Who knows? But they tried to all gather as a family and hear about each other's day.
Well, and I've found that my kids will all get home, if we haven't been able to have dinner together, because some nights it just doesn't work. Everybody, I mean, there was a night a couple weeks ago, we had 3 games on one night. So, and there's no way everybody's going to sit and eat together.
Right.
But they're actually really interested in everybody talking. So once we all get home, they're all going to be in the kitchen doing their homework, wanting to talk about their day anyway. Mm-hmm. So you might as well serve them some cookies and hear about it.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. And as teenagers, I think it becomes so important for them to have a place that they can talk about things, because I'm sure it comes up in younger ages as well, elementary school. But it seems like it really ramps up in the teenage years, where they come home and it's not so much, or included with their stories is mom or dad or older sibling or whoever. What do you think about this? I heard this from so-and-so, or this crazy thing happened at school, or I heard this crazy story. And it's kind of like, what do you think about this? And just really seeking advice in a roundabout way. So
it's a great place to casually parent. You're teaching them a lot, and that's why it takes a lot of time and investment. I also found that once I went to school and taught there, I went because my kids were there and my youngest was going to be full-time at school. So now I see their friends, and I know I can ask, okay, now what's the story with that person, or
you can ask specific questions.
Yes, and I know I have context for when they tell a story. Oh, I know who those people are, and it's just really helpful to have more touch points with them.
Mm-hmm. It's also, if you can have that opportunity, it's very good to be able to know who their friends are. If you really don't have a clue who any of their friends are, you should probably be trying to figure out a way to learn those people, either by having their families over, or volunteering at the school, or eating lunch with them sometimes. I, years ago, I worked at my children's school for years, and I worked in the office part of the time, and I think it was 5th and 6th grade. I don't remember. Maybe it was 7th grade. There was some particular day, that I would just go plop down with all the boys, and we ate lunch together. They were all at their table, and I'm sure the first time I came and sat at the head of the table, my kids never minded. Some kids are just horrified that their mother is seen around, campus. But mine never minded, and so I would just plop down, and I'm sure it was, some of the boys were like, "Who is this? Why is she here?" But it became this thing where they all wanted to every time I sat down, somebody had a joke to tell me.
Oh, that's
I'm pretty
funny.
sure they were 7th grade boys.
Okay, so yes, that makes a lot of sense. And they're really cute.
They're so cute. But yes, it's like, Mrs. Hawthorne, I have a joke for you. No, wait, I want to tell mine first. It was so much fun, and I got to know who my son's friends were. And I got to be a part of their lives. And like you said, he around the dinner table, I could ask specific questions. Well, how's so-and-so doing? He mentioned, this or whatever.
Andrew coaches junior high football, and that's also a great way for him to see the boys in a context. Of course, I would never see them in a classroom.
Sure.
But it is really great. And then he can give input, and he can see things as a coach that you wouldn't see.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
very fun. So an encouragement to definitely know who your kids' friends are, invite their families to your home, be a part of their lives more than just trying to hear from your kids.
Yeah, and I think this is, a friend of mine told me when my kids were super little, I felt like, oh my word, is this going to be what I do with my whole life? Will I ever stop changing diapers and disciplining children? And she says, just remember, this is the most time you'll ever have with them at home. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same kind of idea. Like, it feels so intense, but it's not forever.
Right.
It's not that long that they're sitting around the table and wanting to have all these conversations, and that you can be invested in this particular way.
Yes. And you're realizing, I have to really create these moments or grab hold of these moments, because they're not at your home the entire day typically. I mean, some people do homeschool, but if they go to school, or they have a sports practice they go to,
wouldn't they be going places doing things?
They're going to have activities. They're going to be going, spending time with friends, or not always. It's not the same as little toddlers.
Right.
Little
Where
people.
they are there all the time and you
All the
feel
time.
like we have all the time in the world.
Right.
Forever, maybe.
This will never end. They will never be
true.
potty trained.
It's so true.
One day. We can both attest. We both have 5 children, 10 between us that have been potty trained.
And sometimes it felt like that might not happen, but it did.
But it did.
It did.
It did. And now we're in the rearview mirror trying to grasp time around the table.
Yep.
Treasure the time around the table. Okay, so when you are shopping, you mentioned grocery pickup. Is that your best shopping tip for us?
Yes, that. So I started doing it with COVID, and then I realized I just like it. Mm-hmm. And Walmart has some stuff I get, but I do not like going into Walmart. And there's another grocery store that has some other things I get, and so I just do 2 grocery pickups, and it makes my life a lot easier. I like to plan my menus, and then I can ask the kids, what all do you want? I think grocery pickup is a huge blessing.
It really is. I feel like it's a huge time saver. Mm-hmm. So if you really do have a lot of irons in the fire, it's one way that you can eliminate hours out of your work week.
It's true.
Hours.
And it's not my favorite time of the week to be in the grocery store, so I'm happy to farm that out.
Right.
And pay someone else to do that. But although it's free to do it, actually, doesn't cost anymore.
Before 2020, do you not have to have a membership to Walmart?
If you get it delivered.
Delivery.
Because you and Ruth get it delivered.
Yes, but you're right. Pickup, there's no fee.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes, it's free to pick it up. You can just type in your...
It's true.
Sit in your pajamas on your couch and type in your order. Before 2020, when I was working at my children's school, I would need to go on Saturday unless I went after school, which I was just way too tired to do, plus dinner, and all the things. So I would go on Saturday, and I had that thought, I really don't like spending most of my Saturday traipsing around town, going from this store to that store, because I'd go to Sam's Club, which is a big.
You go to all the different stores
club.
And then you spend all day.
Yes, but then I'd have to go to a smaller store. But then there, somebody would always, our list would grow. So somebody would need something that, a little art project, or somebody would need this or that and another thing. And so half the day would be gone. I'm exhausted by the time I crawl in the house from 4 hours of going through superstores. And anyway, so yes, I feel like it has been a huge blessing to have the option of pickup or delivery.
Well, and to be able to, instead of adding it to my list throughout the week, somebody says, we need this, and I just put it on my Walmart app. I'm like, that's okay. I don't have to remember that. It's already in my cart.
Yes. And if they have your login, they can add to throughout the week as well. I mean, usually my youngest Max, he just tells me.
Right. My kids just...
Hey, Mom, we're out of milk. Okay, hold on. And I'll type it up real quick. So anyway, great tip. What about cleaning? You are a busy lady with teaching high school, having 5 children, sports practices, a business you and your husband are running. How do you even clean?
I actually have a house cleaner, and she comes once a week, and I find that does not mean that I'm not cleaning constantly, right. But it means the basics are taken care of, and then we do all the rest. The kids are supposed to vacuum, and they're supposed to mop and clean the counters and do the dishes, so they have a rotation for helping with dinner. But and then all the little maintenance things you always have to do, but I don't have to do them in addition to making sure all the basics, like cleaning the bathrooms and doing the full vacuum and mop, are done as well.
Which, if you were teaching every day at school, you come home and
I would do it anyway.
When are you going to invite people over?
It's true.
It would be a lot of prep and trying to figure out when you come home from school, how to get all the cleaning done throughout the week so that you feel like, okay, I can have company over on the weekend.
And the kids have gotten to the point now that if we're having a bunch of people over or anybody over, they know, these are the things that have to be done in order to have someone over for dinner. And so they get into action. They know, all right, you can't have your cleats in the middle of the floor. You can't have your socks in the middle of the floor. The sofa needs to look nice. Pick up all the blankets and all of that sort of thing. So they are really great about that.
Well, that is a great idea. So if you can afford it to hire a housekeeper to help you, there's also times when if you're having just a big party and you think, well, I can do this once or I can do this every few months or something like that. I know people, if they're hosting maybe a bigger event, that they will pay somebody one time or they'll pay, it could be their friend, their children's friends or just teenagers they know to come in and help clean and maybe prep and serve, just to kind of be a part of the event, to have extra helping hands. So,
if there's a way to do it so that you can actually accomplish more, that's a fabulous, and you're teaching them at the same time. They're learning this is what it takes to have people over, and it's not so intimidating, because sometimes it just feels like the road between where I am right now and having those people over is so impossible to traverse. There's no way I'm going to do it, but you could actually, if somebody can help you out with little pieces of it, then it doesn't have to be so intimidating.
Absolutely. And having your kids have certain jobs is genius as well, because it teaches them how to have an eye for what needs to be done. And so
ideally,
you don't have to tell them, hopefully,
yes,
having to tell them every single week, straighten the couch cushions, pick up your shoes. Eventually their eyes are open and they can recognize, okay, I can look around this room. I know what needs to be done. Go.
And if it's a really big thing like Easter or something like that, where we are having a lot of different tables and we are having to move furniture and all of that, we just make a huge list and people will check it off when they're the one, they've done it and they'll put their name on it. And that way we all come together to do it and they really enjoy it, but we're inviting families with their friends. So they enjoy that too.
Sure. And it's something they're working towards that they're excited about. What is your best advice for showing warm hospitality to those coming into your home?
I think that everyone should be able to have a warm chocolate chip cookie. So
I love warm chocolate chip cookies.
I really love warm chocolate chip cookies. And so we always have frozen cookie dough balls in our freezer. And then you are within 20 minutes of having a warm cookie at any point, because you could turn on the oven, put the cookies in, and you're good. So
this is the best advice yet.
Well, because it involves chocolate chip cookies. And I think those are a crucial part of hospitality.
Kind of pushes the hospitality over the edge. Your guests will definitely want to return. So when you pull frozen cookie dough balls out of the freezer, do you have to change cooking time or temperature? What do you do to
You might cook them for a minute or two longer. And then you're... but that's really all. Mm-hmm. And it's just fabulous. It doesn't last very long at our house to have, we're constantly replenishing, because the children also just eat the dough, maybe almost daily.
Right. A frozen cookie dough ball is very tempting after school.
It is.
It's an after school snack.
And then King Arthur Flour actually made, or King Arthur Baking Company or whatever they're called, made a tray for cookie dough. And so you can actually just spread the cookie dough in the tray.
Really?
And you can freeze it, and the cookie dough balls are massive. They're larger than I would.
It's almost like a giant cookie?
It's not so giant that you feel like that's not legal. It's too big. As a mom, I would be like, that's more 1.5 to almost 2 cookies.
The kids want you to buy this, in other words. They want you to have this tray.
But it's like a honeycomb thing. And and you put it in, and then it's frozen, and then you can push them out when you want. Is it
a silicone mold? Mm-hmm. And they pop out very easily.
The kids pop them out amazingly easily.
Oh, they make sure that those cookies are coming out.
But it's really great, because then it saves you all that scooping time as well, making it that much faster.
I'll have to look into that, because way back when I first made cookies, you did the 2 spoons.
Oh, yeah. Back in the day. Now we have scoopers, but we used to do the spoons.
Yes. And the scoopers I love because they're exact. I mean, you're not going to have, the baking time is exact. So if they're all the same size, it's not that some are getting a little too crisp and some are too big, and so they're not quite done. That was the spoon problem.
But that's also if you're rolling the dough in the sugar. I always find those recipes where I have to roll the cookies in some sort of, like molasses cookies or snickerdoodles. Mine are never the same size. Oh, I guess I could use the scooper, but usually you're supposed to have them a little bit smaller. I don't know.
Well, you could use the scoop. There are different size scoopers.
You've got a good point.
I don't know how many different levels, but I know that brand. I think it's OXO,
or whatever it is. I don't know what it is.
Well,
and I have
said,
multiple size scoopers. This is the best part of this. I know this because I have them, but I don't think I have the right one. And then eventually it turns into, I have the right one for some kinds of cookies, but not the others. But then eventually I can't find anything in the drawer because I have so many little things.
This is where, okay, listeners, you're going to have to come up with a solution for her lost mixed up cookie dough scoopers because this is an emergency.
But I mostly...
Maybe you can make little hooks inside a cabinet and hang them like in graduated order, something like that.
That's a great plan. The thing is, I mostly care about the chocolate chip cookies. Molasses cookies are a concession to others, but...
Yes. Those are the ones I don't know, molasses is pretty healthy. Do you feel like you're healthier if you create molasses cookies?
I feel like if you eat an oatmeal cookie, it's like you're having breakfast.
Yes.
Because I put brown sugar and butter on oatmeal, so it's kind of like a breakfast
you could call it breakfast cookies. There are recipes out there.
Yes.
Somebody's trying to get rid of some guilt here.
Yes. And molasses, they don't taste super sweet because they have all the spice in them. And so now
they are actually really good, especially around the holidays. I will admit that I make chocolate chip cookies the most, and I do have a standard size scooper for just the classic size that that bakes at 350 for 10 minutes, just the classic size. And I've gotten really fast at it. So you can scoop, super fast. Mine is a squeeze trigger handle. And so you scoop and then you squeeze it, scoop, squeeze, So I've gotten pretty fast, but the honeycomb or the silicone tray sounds...
This is particularly useful for the kids because they actually make the dough all the time and they don't want to scoop it. It's the one thing that they'll be like, hey, you ate the dough, so they'll say to their siblings, you ate the dough, so you should have to scoop. And so nobody wants to scoop. So the tray is useful.
The tray is useful. If you don't have a tray and you use the scoop, the way I freeze cookie dough balls is by scooping them onto a cookie sheet. And you can get them really close together. It's not like you're baking them and have to spread apart or anything because you do want room for baking. But you spread it, you put them on a cookie sheet close to each other so you can fit a lot on there, but don't let them touch. Put them in the freezer until the outside is frozen enough. It doesn't take that long. The outside is frozen enough that when you throw them in a gallon-size freezer bag or whatever container you want, I usually put them in a gallon-size freezer bag. They don't stick together.
You can do that same thing with yeast rolls. If you're making rolls, you know how they do they double rise a lot of times?
Yes.
So before the second rise, you just put them in the freezer on a cookie sheet. Don't let them touch. And they'll last for a couple of months at least in your freezer. And then you can pull them out and do the final rise. It'll take twice the time on the counter.
But if you do it in the morning, they're ready.
Well, it's 3 hours. It'll take you about 3 hours to do the final rise. Okay. And then you can put them in the oven. So you know how you can buy frozen yeast rolls?
Like the Rhodes rolls?
Yeah, it's like that, but you make them yourself instead.
Oh, I haven't ever done that. I'm going to try that.
That is useful because my family would often come for Christmas and there'd be 19 people in my house for a week, and you have to have a lot of food, but you don't want to be in the kitchen from
creating
7 to 7
biscuits or rolls or
something.
Right.
And so having stuff in the freezer so that it can come out and be ready is really useful.
I love having pre-made freezer food, homemade freezer food for family coming.
Yeah.
It just gives you a lot more time to sit and visit. Or go and do something. If everybody wants to go to an activity and they're returning right at dinner time or right at lunchtime, if you can pull something out that you've made ahead of time, you have to try that yeast roll idea. Okay. What is your must-have kitchen item and where could I find it?
Well, obviously the honeycomb tray we've covered.
That is sounding pretty nice. I need to put my 10th grader on this.
Yeah, well, Christmas is coming.
Christmas is coming. I need some cookies in the freezer.
Right. And then, we use the mixer all the time. But I would guess that most people have a mixer. I just have a KitchenAid and I really like it. And then I have a kitchen scale because I find that faster for a lot of things to just weigh. Mm-hmm. I have one I got on Amazon and I just look for a good review. Mm-hmm. I've had ones that were terrible. Actually, I got one from Williams-Sonoma that was awful and I got it replaced and the second one was also awful.
So something about
and I've forgotten the brand. It's something about they're a brand that really focuses on pizza ovens, but they also made scales, and this one was just so bad. But the one I have is Escali or something, Escali.
Okay.
But I like it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different ones, though.
And it allows you to easily make recipes from chefs that are from England.
No kidding.
Or maybe somewhere else in Europe. But, I'm thinking of like Nigella Lawson or...
Yes.
I don't know. Other Jamie Oliver. Occasionally I'll come across a recipe and it's by an English chef, and they almost always...
It's grams.
And something that's not cups and teaspoons. I mean, maybe they convert.
But then a lot of times if you're making... So obviously I make a lot of dessert. And if you're measuring chocolate, it'll be you need this many ounces or this many grams of chocolate. And so you're going to have a scale if you believe in chocolate.
Yes. Oh, I believe in chocolate. I definitely believe in chocolate.
I'm with you.
Speaking of dessert, do you have a favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe that you use? Or is it just kind of a tried and true back in the day?
Okay, so I have a recipe that we really love. And there was this sweet, sweet lady in our church who would make these all the time. And I would ask her about this recipe. And she would be like, oh, you just add an extra egg. And I thought, this isn't really... And
baking, you usually don't just add random extra things. Maybe she could and knows exactly how to do it.
Well, and so I thought, she must not want to share the recipe, and that's perfectly fine. I will just always be at events where she's bringing cookies, and she does an amazing job. Mm-hmm. But then my kids had to, this sounds terrible. My children had to go to the hospital. They had to have a lot of blood transfusions. And as a result, she brought us cookies when we got back, and she gave me the recipe. And I was like, look, kids, sometimes you got to take one for the team. and
God brought this into your life for a reason.
And now we've got the cookie recipe. So I'm glad they're okay. Of course, that's the most important thing. But also we have the cookie recipe. So, yes, that's my favorite one. And that's the one that
you
put
could
the
immediately
honeycomb
see what the benefit of the trial was.
Right? We saw it right away. The whole family benefited.
It sounds like your recipe is kind of top secret. So I will post one of my favorites. It's not super top secret. It's from Southern Living. And it's in their Ultimate Southern Living cookbook. But I've made a slight tweak to it. Not much. But I will post this one because it is out there for the world to see. And I will post my changes and also give you a link to the original recipe because it is delicious. Why did multiple kids have to have blood transfusions?
It was actually 3 of them in a 2-week span. We got 11 units of blood, actually. But I have a blood disorder that I have passed down to 4 out of my 5 children. Okay. And they got this normal little childhood disease. It's called Fifth's disease, where you have the slapped cheeks. And it's actually a parvovirus for kids. Mm-hmm. Most kids would never know they had it. But my kids, because of their blood disorder, it causes you to stop producing red blood cells, and they just got super, super anemic. So their blood was kind of pink instead of red.
Wow.
And so we had to do
Does this only happened once?
Well, one of them, when he was 3 weeks old, he had to have a blood transfusion, but I did as well when I was 3 weeks old. So I never had this, and this is a hereditary disorder, obviously, and none of my family had this. So this was the first time I'd ever seen an illness. But I spent all their childhoods looking at, like, are your eyes yellow because you're breaking down red blood cells? Are your lips white? Are your fingernails, there's a cap refill that you can tell. Are they anemic? So that's just kind of a par for the course.
That is so interesting. So do they... Now that they're teenagers, is it pretty manageable?
So when I was a kid, they would just remove your spleen and it dealt with it. But now they don't do that because they say there are long-term consequences they don't like. So for the 2 that had it the worst, they had 80% of their spleens removed And so we went over to Seattle and got that done. And now
So interesting.
they're doing fine.
I would never in a million years know anything, that they struggled with anything like that, because they're just always so chipper and happy and
Well, you missed
active.
So
And
when my oldest was in 8th grade, his friends were like, hey, your eyes are yellow.
Wow.
And if 8th grade boys notice what color your eyes are,
Right.
like that, the whites of your eyes are yellow.
Mom
Like,
needs to know.
there's something wrong.
8th grade boys probably aren't very observant.
No. So that you moved here after the but you could see pictures where they were real jaundiced and their lips were white, and it was like, oh, you were starting to look not so great.
You look like you needed some blood.
Yeah. So
Wow.
really grateful actually that our doctor here does direct care, and he's fabulous, and he got us hooked up with somebody that did these surgeries, and it was before COVID, so it wasn't such a crazy thing to go to a hospital.
Right.
And then it was a real mercy. They were fine. It was scary at the time. They were fine. And we got the cookie recipe.
You got the cookie recipe, which score.
Also a French chef brought us a steak dinner.
Oh, at the hospital?
No, when we got home
got
from the
home?
hospital. It was
I need to
also
check myself
really-
into a hospital.
again, let me state that it was scary. But there were also
French
some
chef steaks,
Yeah.
chocolate chip cookie recipe from
maybe some, and one gal brought us
grandmother.
Ina Garten's lasagna recipe. That was really good.
Anything from
Obviously,
Ina
I love
Garten.
food because I'm
You're
actually
remembering the trauma of the moment was replaced by the delight of the food.
fabulous food.
Which is going back to our whole podcast on hospitality. It really does mean it feeds people's souls. It's not just their empty stomachs. It feeds people's souls. And
It's
especially
true.
moments like that.
Yeah.
It means so much to people. It comforts them. For one, you're thinking about them, but it really does feed
It is a
your
real
body and soul.
blessing, because when you're coming back from something like that, it's all crazy, and you're still, there's a little bit of stress involved in we had to go up to Spokane, so it's about an hour and a half away, and had the two boys in the hospital there, and then the other one was just able to be in a local hospital, but really,
Well, with the
That-
kids in multiple hospitals, and parents
those were
are in
a
different
week
directions,
later, actually.
different times.
She was a week later. As soon as we got home and got them settled, the next day she popped up with the same virus, and
Wow.
so it was just waiting until she passed out, and we took her to the hospital. I mean,
Wow.
it's like, anyway.
But when you're experiencing something like that, you're not likely to have a fresh batch of soup just sitting deconstructed soup in the
are
fridge,
not.
and cookie dough balls and bread ready to just
And
pull
even
out
if
of
you
the oven.
did, that just even putting it all together and thinking through is just not maybe going to be your top skill set at the moment.
Right. So if a friend is delivering a hot meal and giving
Yeah.
you a hug
it's
and some encouraging
real help.
words, it's something you remember really for a lifetime.
obviously, since I can still tell you all the things we ate.
What did you eat last week? You don't know.
I don't
but
know,
you remember
but
what you ate during that week.
I do.
Okay, you have a story for us. Besides that story, we have a bonus story.
Oh, the bonus.
From Elise.
All the stories involve injuries of my children, so maybe they're not the best stories. But our worst mixer story is my second child, sweet girl with beautiful hair, prior to this incident.
And post.
Yeah, and now she does
Eventually
also
post.
have pretty hair. But she wanted to make cookies for her class, and because it was her birthday the next day, she's in second grade, and she had her hair back in a headband, but somehow it got caught in the mixer, and it pulled out about a 3x5 card worth of hair from the very top of her head.
That mixer must have been going fast.
Oh, it was terrible. I mean,
Top
thankfully it
speed.
didn't get her skin or anything, but it was like,
But it just ripped hair.
it just ripped it out.
Oh,
And
that
it was
is
a
awful.
huge chunk. And what are you
That's
going to do?
so bad.
And you had Rachel Jenk on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Rachel has a daughter in the same class, and she I think I texted her or something and said, do you happen to have any hats? I mean, I was texting
Right.
all kinds of
Like,
people
what
saying,
do
do you
we
have hats?
to
Do you have
cover up this
some sort
spot?
of wide headband? It's right on the top of her head, right by her face, and it's this huge thing. So Rachel whipped up some really thick headband things, and Annabelle was able to go to school because she still wanted to go to school the next day.
Yes.
Not with those cookies. We bought cookies from the store. But
It was an emergency run
yeah,
to the grocery
yeah.
store.
But she wanted to go to school. It was her birthday, and so that was a help and a blessing to have somebody, a friend
Wide
with
headbands.
skills, and make the quick headband.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It was really sweet, and then she could go to school, and we waited for her hair to grow out, and I learned all kinds of new ways to do hair over the top of the head to cover up
Okay, like some side braids or something.
because you had to, I mean, especially when it's bald. I mean, it was just
How
bald.
long did it take for her hair to grow out? It had to have been forever.
Well,
If it's completely pulled out.
it was completely pulled out. It was bruised, or I mean, it didn't look bruised, but she said it hurt
Oh, I'm sure.
for a long time, and then so she had to quit gymnastics, which I was also fine with
Because
because
of rolling,
Yeah.
tumbling, and that sort of thing.
it wasn't. I didn't love the particular program that we could do at our local gymnastics place, and also it always smells like sweat. So,
So
that was
another
out.
bonus
But,
to the injury.
yes,
A hidden blessing.
It was a hidden blessing, but it probably took 6 months before it. Of course, it was. I mean, she had long hair, so it took a
Sure.
really long time for it to grow completely out. But even for it to
Become bangs.
bangs manageable, something that you weren't having to constantly try and cover up.
Wow. That is that's a disaster.
It was a little bit sad, a lot bit sad, but it could have
Yes.
been way worse. I mean, at least it didn't bleed and it did grow back and it didn't scab
Sure.
over or anything
Right.
like that.
It wasn't that she got cut or something like that. But that does seem very traumatic. Does she tiptoe around the mixer now, or is she
We do
made
require
friends?
ponytails with the mixer.
There's a requirement of how the hair
and she's
has to be
taller than
placed.
the mixer now, so that helps. But her younger sister with the long hair has a ponytail always. We do insist
Make
upon
sure
it. And her
it's
hair
up.
had actually been back in a headband, but it just that
Somehow
wasn't enough.
she leaned forward
She
and
must have.
something came down.
Yeah.
That's
And then it wrapped. I mean,
frightening.
it not just, it started and then it wrapped
well,
around.
And then if it's at full speed, I
Yeah.
mean, if it's slow, you can maybe, but also if that happens and you're jerked down, how do you get to the controls before it's really ripping and you're in extreme pain?
It was not our best kitchen moment. It was one of our worst kitchen moments, maybe the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hope you don't top that one.
I'd like to not. I'd very much like to not.
Speaking of mixers, you mentioned that's one of your favorite kitchen items. What size do you like the most?
I think I have the 8-quart. I have whatever's the largest. Was the largest last time I bought one.
With a family of 7, that actually would be
And you can do
a bowl big enough.
Yeah, you could double a bread recipe. You can double the cookie. Again, back to the cookies. You can double the recipe.
Back to the cookies.
Yes. So, and we have a ton of mixer bowls because we're always.
So you can buy extra, or is that what you've done, like on Amazon or something? Can you buy an extra bowl so you don't have to wash and?
I probably have 6 or 7 of them. We have
So nice
lot
if
of.
you're cooking for
Well, but
the crowd.
also some recipes you have to have. Okay, you have to have the whipped egg whites, and then you have the egg yolks with the sugar, and then you have the chocolate you're adding. So
Yes.
having
I
multiple.
only have one, but I've definitely, when I've had to do that, when I've had to completely clean, because egg whites won't whip.
You have to get
it has to be
so clean,
pristine, and then you can't have it hot, because if you're washing in hot soapy water, then you might have to put it in the fridge to get it cooled back down. 'Cause
Right.
You want it at least room temperature, but cool is preferable. I've always, at those moments, thought I am ordering a second bowl, and I haven't done it yet, so this is reminding me.
Christmas list. Your
Christmas
Christmas list is getting longer.
It is getting longer because all of these recommendations, my husband's going to look at my list and be like, why
it's
do
all
you
kitchen.
only want kitchen items? This is weird. Well, I've been hearing all the things. The other thing I like when it comes to mixers is the lift stand or the lift
yeah.
bowl.
That's nice.
Instead of the tilt head. Although, everybody has their preference. They sell 1 million of those tilt heads, so there's people out there who would say the opposite. But the lift bowl, I think they come in the biggest sizes, right? I mean, you're not going to tilt an 8-quart
No,
or a 6-quart.
I have the lift bowl, and I really like it. And I have mine's on a stand that is in my cabinet, and so I just pull it out and pick it up.
Mm-hmm. So it kind of stays in the same place all the time. That's
It
nice.
does, and I don't have to lift it because it is really heavy.
Mm-hmm. It is, especially the 8-quart.
Yes.
You want it to be stationary.
You would.
Something you're moving back and forth from a pantry.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. All of your advice, your tips, and your menu are amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
Well, you are welcome. Until next time, bye.